Hello everyone, welcome to the already third installment of our workshop on the evolution, performance and interoperability of Quick. I will be your host today, me being of course Robin Marks. I'm a postdoctoral researcher at the Catholic University of Leuven here in Belgium. And I am joined today by Christopher Wood, who is currently at Cloudflare, if I'm not mistaken. And Chris organized a different Quick workshop last year, which was called Quips, which mainly focused on the security aspects of Quick. They decided to not do a new installment of Quips this year, and so I asked him to join us with the EPIQ team. And at that point, Chris didn't really know me very well, which is probably the reason that he accepted. For those of you who have been with us for a few years know that this is a new team. Me and Chris will be taking over from Lars, who is now doing much more important things as the IETF main chairman, of course, and Jörg, who is done with organizing simple workshops. He now only does a full top-tier conferences. So you can see that organizing the EPIQ workshop is a great way to improve your job prospects. And I, for one, cannot wait to see how this will improve what I will be doing in a few years, as well as Chris. Now, of course, we couldn't have done this all by ourselves. This is, of course, the work of a full team. We had an amazing program committee this year with a mix of people both from industry and academia, which was amazing. And I especially wanted to point out both Colin and Quentin, who went above and beyond and provided more and excellent reviews than they were actually asked to do. That EPIQ workshop is really dear to my heart personally, ever since the first installment, for several reasons. Firstly, because I had a paper accepted at the first one 3 years ago. The first paper on QLog, very important for me. Second, because it was an amazing venue. It was in Heraklion in Crete. Fantastic city, amazing food, but especially also for the keynote, which was done then by Facebook's Subodh Iyengar. And he was talking about how they actually were deploying Quick at that time. They were, of course, not doing this for their web pages yet, because there were no browsers that supported Quick at that point. They were doing it from their native Facebook apps to the Facebook backend. I would recommend you still watch that keynote. It's on YouTube. It's still amazing, mind-blowing what they were able to do even back then. Of course, in the 3 years since, lots has changed with Quick, with this year, of course, being very interesting. We have finally released at least 4 of the Quick RFCs with very interesting numbers, as everybody probably knows. These will hopefully soon be joined by 2 more RFCs, which I would consider to be also core Quick RFCs, which are the manageability and applicability documents that help indicate how you should use and also deploy Quick in practice. Those should come out, I think, soon. And then, of course, we also have HTTP3, which is the main application protocol people will probably run on top of Quick. That is also not a full RFC just yet, but it is kind of finished and people are deploying it at this point as if it was a full RFC. For people here who don't know, the reason it's not an RFC yet is mainly administrative. It's because the IETF has also been reworking some of the core HTTP semantics documents. And they're kind of waiting for those to become official RFCs so they can reference them from HTTP3, which I think we're expecting to happen in the next few months. So HTTP3 is pretty much done as well as QPAC, its header compression set. So that's like the main Quick and HTTP3 stuff is done, but that doesn't mean it's the end. There are still a lot of other things happening within the IETF. There are a lot of Quick extensions being worked on, things like version negotiation and reliable datagrams. There is talk about starting a multi-path extension for real. And then, of course, we have other things going on top of Quick as well, or using Quick, things like web transport, or the proxying setup with Mask, which we will hear quite a bit more about in several presentations today as well. So Quick itself and HP3 have matured, but that doesn't mean it's the end. We are still going forward. The fact that they've matured enough also means that we now have some pretty large-scale deployments going on at this point. While last year, especially, the browsers were still lagging behind a little bit at this point in time, now they are very mature, and most of them even have HTTP3 and Quick enabled by default, which is, I think, quite impressive. There are, of course, also many backend installations that do this. We know about Google and Facebook. There are a lot of the bigger CDNs, of course, especially Cloudflare and Fastly spring to mind because they have been involved with Quick since the very beginning. And of course, we also have other companies like Microsoft and Apple, who've also been using Quick in very interesting ways, I find. And this is why we invited them today, as you know, to do 2 keynotes for you today. Now, as we all know, these 2 companies have somewhat of a friendly rivalry in the past, and I hope this will come out today as well, in a kind of a friendly one-upping each other, providing us with the best and most interesting content on Quick that they can. Now, by the way, for the people who are in the IETF, don't you think that guy on the right looks suspiciously like David? I mean, that must be from his modeling career, early days. Now, Quick is done, it's mature, it's being deployed. And so a lot of people, especially from academia, have been asking me, Robin, does that mean we can't do research anymore? Is it not useful anymore to do Quick research because it's all been figured out now, it's been deployed, right? Now, of course, you know, nobody has ever asked me that, ever, but it sounds right, you know, it sounds nice for the story, so just pretend people have been asking this. And so whenever they ask me, you know, I always say, no, it's not too late. It's actually the exact perfect time to start because, in my opinion, the previous years were too early. By then, we didn't have the mature implementations. Not all the implementations were bug-free. Not all of them were performance optimized. And so some types of research, especially performance research, were, in my opinion, very difficult to do correctly. This was actually the main topic of my own Quick EPIQ paper for the last year's edition. This has changed now. I think most of these are more or less optimized through their deployments. And in combination with the now very mature browser implementations, now we can start to do things like HTTP3 performance testing for web page loading, and so on. So I think it's a very exciting time to be doing and starting Quick research. And not just performance, I think there are many other things we can do as well. For example, we could use academic research to support the practical deployments. We see 2 examples of that today. For example, we have a paper on the MTU discovering how large your Quick packets can get, which I myself was quite surprised about when I saw a discussion on this in the Quick Dev Slack a few months ago, because it seems that even the big deployments like Facebook haven't actually figured out how to properly do this yet. So still very interesting stuff to do, as well as things like actually deploying the spin bit to measure round trip times in a connection, right? Next to that, we of course also have things that build on top of Quick or using Quick in new ways. A lot of people have been looking towards using it for real-time media and video streaming. And so we also have 2 very interesting papers on that, one of which is today's winner of the Best Paper Title Award. I can already lift the page on that one. And then, of course, we also have a different paper on how to use Quick for different proxying use cases with Mask. Very much looking forward to that one. Then, just because Quick implementations are somewhat mature doesn't mean they are completely bug-free or perfect yet, right? Quick is a very complex protocol, has been implemented from scratch for most of them. And so it will take some time for them to fully mature. And that's also something that I think our last paper here on the right has looked into a bit. And this type of research will remain very useful in the future because we now see new Quick implementations coming out. One that springs to mind is, for example, Nginx, who were relatively late to the party and are doing most of these things in isolation. We also have seen intent from, for example, OpenSSL to do their full on Quick stack. And so helping verify that those Quick stacks worked correctly and performantly, I think, is a great opportunity for researchers to help with that. And these are just some of the topics. We will see more. I think Nick in the Microsoft keynote will also give us a few more ideas about how we as academics can contribute to this and have an impact even on industry through our research. So excellent time to do quick research. That is not the question. One of the questions you might ask is, will this workshop remain the best way to disseminate that research in the future? It's a bit more difficult. We only really had 8 papers submitted to the workshop this time. Luckily, most of them were of very good quality, allowing us to accept 6 of the 8, which of course will be presented today. Additionally, I had hoped to have, let's say, about 50 participants today. We are now at 27. Maybe that will go ahead when we start the keynote, but as you can imagine, not that much interest anymore in the workshop. I think that's actually a good thing, because if we look at what has happened with other quick papers this year, we've seen quick papers show up at some of the premier top-tier conferences. 2 examples just selected were, for example, the multipath paper from Alibaba at SIGCOMM, and then we also had a measurements paper at IMC for quick deployments as well. So it's clear that quick research is mature enough, I think, to be published at these bigger conferences. And even though at CONEXT this week, I couldn't find a very specific quicker HTTP3 paper, I am familiar with the paper on the bottom, or the earlier work that went into the voxel implementation, because that was actually presented 3 years ago at the first EPIQ workshop as well, or at least the basics of this. And so it's clear that even if EPIQ will not be the main venue to keep on presenting quick research, you will definitely find other venues for your work to be presented. And so whether or not this is the final EPIQ will remain to be seen, but let's make sure that we make it a nice one, shall we? All right. But that is the end of my introduction, and I will soon give it over to our first keynote speaker of the day, which is Nick Banks from Microsoft, who has been, as long as I know, has been the lead or one of the lead engineers on the quick implementation for Microsoft for several years. And just to describe Quick to you, just to describe Nick to you a little bit, I think he is a tenacious, thorough, and thoughtful fellow. He has been very active in the Quick design, in the Quick working group at the IETF. I can honestly say that I think without him, Quick would look very different today. Next to that, he's also been very active in formalizing how we can do quick performance testing, which is not really surprising because it turns out that his implementation was always one of the fastest, if not the fastest, in any performance test. So kind of expected. But he also, for example, helped with load balancing, the load balancing draft. He's one of the co-editors on that. Besides that, I found Nick to be a generous, genuine, and jovial person as well. I've had amazing opportunities to talk with him in person in the past few years, and he has always been ready to share his insights, his opinions, and to have discussions about all these things, even with, at that time, PhD students who clearly were out of their depth, and he always made a good effort to explain things clearly. So he's just a very, very nice person overall. Sadly, Nick is also a bit stubborn and maybe boring. Stubborn because he still has not added QLog support in Microsoft QuickStack to this day. Big oversight, in my opinion. And boring because he simply refuses to wear the pirate hat that I had specifically requested for him during his keynote. And you can see, Nick, from this artistic rendering that I did, that it's a huge missed opportunity. But, you know, we'll have to make do. And with that, without further ado, I would say, thank you all for coming, and let's get ready to listen to Nick's fantastic keynote. Thank you.